My name is Helena Cruz. I'm 22 years old, and the night my family toasted my graduation was the night I quietly decided I was done being their walking wallet. I didn't even want a graduation party. I told my mom we didn't have to do anything fancy, that I'd be happy with a dinner or nothing at all. I knew how things were. Between paychecks again, as she liked to say. That phrase had become the wallpaper of our house. We're doing a party, she insisted, waving off my concerns. It's a family milestone. You only graduate once. She didn't mention that most of the family milestone would be charged to my card. The party was in our backyard. The same sagging string lights we'd had since I was a kid. Half of them dead. The rest flickering, like they were tired too. Folding tables borrowed from the neighbor. Food from a Costco run I'd paid for. Trays of pre-made pasta, meatballs, plastic tubs of salad, a cake with my name spelled slightly wrong. There were a few cousins, two of my mom's coworkers, my dad's buddies from the warehouse, who already smelled like cheap beer and kept calling me Helen. It's Helena, I corrected once. They laughed like I was being adorable, not accurate. My older brother, Marcus, stood near the cooler with a drink, acting like he'd organized the whole thing. He hadn't paid a cent. That was the pattern. I saved, they spent, and we all pretended it was normal. Logan was there too, my boyfriend. He came straight from his shift, still in his polo, hair pushed back like he'd done it with his hands in the car. He hugged me when he arrived, pressed his chin to my shoulder. "Proud of you," he murmured into my ear. Those were 3 words I'd never heard from my parents. Not once. I gave him a small smile and tried not to look at the credit card charge notifications still sitting unopened on my phone. The sun dipped lower. People milled around, talking about nothing. Someone put on music from a decade ago. It was the kind of party where everyone claps if someone taps a glass or raises a cup, even when they probably shouldn't. Marcus was the one who did it. He stood up, solo cup in hand, grinning like he was at a roast. The conversations died down around him. All right, he said loudly. I want to say something. Everyone turned. My dad leaned back in his lawn chair, already smirking. Marcus lifted his cup toward me. Crazy you finished, he said. You'll probably end up jobless anyway. There was this second where the words just hung there, floating above the folding tables and Costco pasta. Then my dad laughed. Loud, careless laughter, like it was the funniest thing he'd heard in years. One of his friends snorted. A cousin gave this uncomfortable little chuckle. My mom didn't even look over. She kept chatting with one of her coworkers, twisting a napkin in her fingers. My cheeks went hot. I could feel my ears burning. I forced a smile because that's what I'd been trained to do in this house. Take the hit, swallow it, keep everyone comfortable. I didn't say anything. I put my paper plate down on the table, the cake with my almost right name staring up at me, and walked back into the house. Logan watched me go, concern written all over his face, but he didn't follow. I think he knew I needed a second alone more than I needed someone at my side. Inside, the kitchen was quiet. The air felt heavier away from the canned laughter. I braced my hands on the counter and let my jaw unclench. It wasn't like this was new. Marcus had always loved getting a laugh at my expense. My dad had always loved playing along. My mom had always pretended not to hear. But something about it, the fact that I'd paid for the food he was drinking over, the lights that were barely hanging on, the cake, the plastic forks, snapped a thin thread inside me. I heard the faint echo of my grandfather's voice in the back of my mind. You're not their daughter to them. You're their lifeline. One day you'll see it. Maybe that day had just arrived. I pulled out my phone. There was a notification from the Loan Portal app sitting there like a little landmine. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus had come to me with this big dream speech about online classes, how he was finally going to fix his life, get certified, make real money, stop being a disappointment. He'd showed me a glossy image of a brand new laptop, almost $3,000, said he needed it for his coursework. He couldn't qualify for the loan himself. I just need a cosigner, he'd said. Just for the laptop. I'll handle everything else, I swear. Come on, Lena, we're family. I had watched him sink whole afternoons into online games in that same cracked armchair in the living room. I had never once seen him open anything that looked like a syllabus. But I signed anyway, because that's what I did, because I still thought helping him was my responsibility. Standing in the kitchen after that toast, I opened the app. My thumb hovered over the Remove Cosigner option for a full minute. I could hear the muffled sound of the party through the back door. My dad's booming laugh, my mom's polite voice, Marcus probably retelling his hilarious joke, my graduation party, my debt, my effort. Their punchline, I thought about all the electric bills I'd quietly paid for a year, the internet bill that auto-drafted from my account every month since I was 19, the gas money, the groceries, the late-night pharmacy runs. I thought about my mom's voice every time I dared to complain. We're between paychecks again, mija. You know how it is. I exhaled slowly. Then I tapped the button. A confirmation box popped up. Are you sure you want to remove yourself as co-signer from this loan? Yes. For the first time in a long time, I was sure about something. I hit confirm. The screen spun, then refreshed. My name disappeared from the application. I locked the phone and slipped it back into my pocket just as the back door opened. Hey, Logan said softly, stepping into the kitchen. You okay? I'm fine, I lied automatically. Then, after a beat, I just needed some air and less comedy. He gave me a look that said he'd heard the toast too. You know that wasn't funny, right? He said. What he said? Your dad laughing? It's normal, I said before I could stop myself. They're just like that. Logan's eyes softened with something between sadness and frustration. Normal doesn't have to mean okay, he said quietly. I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because agreeing would mean admitting I'd been living in a place that wasn't okay for a long time. We went back outside. I pasted the smile back on. I let people hug me and tell me how proud they were when they barely knew what I studied. I watched my brother drink, laugh, and brag about how he was taking online courses soon, how he was finally going to get ahead, and I knew the call he didn't see coming would make those words crumble. The party ended the way all our gatherings ended. Paper plates stacked on the counter, my mom sighing about cleanup, my dad disappearing to the couch, Marcus wandering off, like he'd done everyone a favor by showing up. I stacked plates and scrubbed pans until my back ached. No one thanked me for the party. No one asked how I felt about graduating. No one mentioned the toast. Later that night, lying in bed with my phone face down on the nightstand, sleep wouldn't come. I thought about the way my dad had laughed, about how my mom hadn't flinched, about how my brother had looked so smug saying I'd end up jobless when he hadn't held a job more than 3 months in his life. I thought about my grandfather again, how every Thanksgiving and Christmas he'd pull me aside and repeat the same thing. You need to get out of that house. They're not your responsibility. They're your burden. I used to think he was being dramatic, bitter, old. Now I wasn't so sure. At 9:12 a.m. the next morning, while I was scrolling through job boards on my laptop, Marcus's phone rang in the living room. I recognized the loan company name on the caller ID as I passed by. He answered on speaker like he always did. What? He said, sounding half asleep. Hello, is this Marcus Cruz? A cheerful voice asked. Yeah. We're calling about your laptop loan. Unfortunately, your co-signer has been removed from the application, so we're unable to proceed with the approval at this time. What? Marcus snapped, suddenly fully awake. What do you mean removed? It was approved. Not anymore, the voice said. Without a qualified co-signer. He hung up. 10 seconds later, my phone buzzed. What did you do? The text read in all caps. Another came right after. Dude, you screwed me. I stared at the screen. For once in my life, I didn't rush to explain. I didn't apologize or justify or offer to fix it. I set the phone face down on my desk. By noon, I had 4 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, and 1 from an unknown number that was probably Marcus using a friend's phone. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened a new tab. Apartments for rent within 30 minutes of the city. Studio, 1 bedroom, max budget. Listing after listing loaded tiny photos of tiny spaces with peeling paint and narrow kitchens and cracked tiles. Every single one of them looked like a miracle. By the time the front door slammed that evening and I heard my parents' voices downstairs, low, tense, already simmering, I knew something had shifted that wasn't going back. The storm was about to walk through the kitchen. For once, I wasn't planning on standing there with an umbrella. By the time they got home that evening, I could hear them before I saw them. Their voices drifted in through my bedroom window. My dad's low and angry, my mom's shrill and brittle, Marcus's pitchy ranting layered over both, the sound of tires crunching gravel, a car door slamming like punctuation. I closed my laptop, the apartment listings blurred into the background. The front door burst open. I stayed sitting at the kitchen table with a half-eaten bowl of cereal because I was tired of running to my room like a guilty kid. If we were going to do this, we were going to do it with me sitting right there. My dad came in first, pacing like he needed to wear a groove into the floor. His jaw was set, his fists clenched just enough to notice. My mom followed him, already talking. Have you completely lost your mind? She demanded, not even bothering with hello. Do you have any idea what you've done? Marcus slammed the door behind them and stomped into the kitchen. I kept my spoon in my hand and looked up calmly. My heart was pounding, but I'd decided hours ago I wasn't going to show it. "What the hell were you thinking?" my dad snapped. "Taking your name off the loan?" Marcus pointed a finger at me like a lawyer in a TV show. "You ruined my credit," he shouted. "You sabotaged my future. They said I can't get approved anymore. I needed that laptop for school." "You needed it for games," I said evenly. "You haven't enrolled in anything." His face went red. "You don't know what I'm doing. You're not the only one trying to get somewhere in life." "You don't have a job, Marcus," I replied. "You stand in a GameStop parking lot with your friends for hours and call it talking business." My mom threw up her hands. "Listen to how you talk to your brother," she said. "You think you're better than everyone now because you have a piece of paper and a cheap party?" "The cheap party I paid for." I didn't say it out loud, not yet. My dad planted his hands on the back of a chair and leaned toward me, eyes narrowed. "We trusted you," he said. "We asked for one thing. You agreed. You don't just back out and make us look like fools." "You didn't ask," I said quietly. "Marcus showed me a picture and told me to co-sign. You didn't even know about the loan until now, did you?" For a moment, my dad's expression flickered. Then he pushed on. "You owe us," he snapped. "We raised you. We gave you a roof over your head, clothes, food." I almost laughed. "I've been paying the electric bill for a year," I said. "The internet since I was 19. I pay for groceries half the time. Gas. The party yesterday? That was my card too." My mom's face darkened. "That's called helping your family," she shot back. "That's what you do. You don't throw it in our faces like we're strangers. What? You want a medal?" "I want boundaries," I said. My voice surprised even me. It came out steady, firm, like it belonged to someone who knew what she was worth. Marcus scoffed. "You're selfish," he snapped. "All this because of one joke. You're sabotaging my life over a toast." "Your toast was just the last straw," I said. "This has been going on for years." My mom crossed her arms, eyes sharp. "So what?" she said. "You're just not going to help your brother? You're going to let your family struggle while you run off and live some fantasy life? Newsflash, Helena. You won't make it 2 months on your own. You think money grows on trees out there?" My dad shook his head slowly, disappointment dripping from every movement. "You're ungrateful," he said. "We sacrificed for you. We kept a roof over your head, a bed for you to sleep in, food in your mouth. You think you did all this by yourself?" I set my spoon down. "I'm not paying for anyone's mistakes anymore," I said. "That's it." Silence. For a moment, I thought my dad was going to flip the table. His fingers tightened on the chair so hard his knuckles went white. My mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're going to regret this," she said. "When you fail, when you come crawling back, we'll see how big your mouth is then." I stood up, my legs trembling only slightly. "Then I'll regret it," I said. "But I'm still not putting my name back on that loan." Marcus muttered something under his breath about me being dead to him. My dad cursed in Spanish. My mom shook her head like I'd personally betrayed the entire bloodline. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just walked to my room, closed the door, and locked it. For the first time in my life, the lock felt like something I was choosing, not something I was hiding behind. The next day, no one spoke to me. Not in words, anyway. My mom slammed cupboards hard enough to rattle the glasses. My dad sighed loudly every time he passed my door, like he wanted to puncture the silence with his disappointment. Marcus lurked in the hallway, letting out exaggerated scoffs any time he heard me moving around. The message was clear. You're supposed to feel guilty. You're supposed to break first. I didn't. I called in sick to my part-time job at the bookstore and spent the whole day hunched over my laptop, comparing apartment listings like they were classified documents. Studio, $1,100, with utilities included. Basement 1 bedroom, $950, but partially furnished, with furniture I knew would probably smell like cigarettes. Walk up, $250, no parking. I toggled between tabs. Rent estimates, gas costs, take-home pay, grocery budgets, emergency fund. I had about $5,000 in savings, scraped together from tutoring, freelance work, and not buying anything I didn't absolutely need. The plan had always been to move out someday. Someday when I had enough. Someday when it made sense. Someday when they weren't between paychecks and needed me less. But something had snapped. The graduation party, the toast, the loan, their reaction. I couldn't pretend anymore. I wasn't their daughter, I was a resource. A wallet with legs. That afternoon, Logan texted, "How's your head? Been thinking about you." I hesitated, then called him. He picked up on the first ring. "Hey," he said softly, "how bad was it?" "Bad," I said. "Loan bad. Not talking bad. You owe us everything bad. There was a pause. You know that's not true, he said, that you don't owe them everything. They gave me a roof, I said automatically. You've been paying the electricity that keeps the lights on, he replied. That's not a one-way street. Look, I know it's complicated, but you can't keep bleeding yourself dry for people who only ever ask for more. His voice shifted, quieter. You remember Sophie? He asked. His ex. She'd drained his savings with emergencies that were always suspiciously vague, borrowed money for rent, and bought concert tickets. Guilt tripped him about not being generous enough whenever he hesitated. It took him 2 years and one drained bank account to leave. Yeah, I said. She used to say the same stuff, he continued, that I owed it to her because she supported me emotionally, that I wouldn't survive without her. Leaving felt like jumping without a parachute, but once I got out, I realized she was the one holding the scissors to the strings in the first place. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. So what? I said. You think I should just move out? I think you should let yourself imagine it, he said. A place that's yours. No one slamming cupboards because you said no. No one expecting your paycheck like it belongs to them. I can't stay with you, I blurted. I mean, not like that. I don't want to jump from one house to another and feel like I owe you too. I wasn't offering that, he said gently. I mean, I would if you asked, but I know you. You need your own space. I just don't want you to think this is your only option. Something in my chest loosened at that. I'm looking at apartments, I admitted. He let out a breath. Good, he said. Even if you don't pick one yet, just keep looking. Keep that door open in your head. After we hung up, I went back to the listings with a new kind of focus. This time, it didn't feel like fantasy. It felt like pre-planning. The next morning, I was mid-scroll, comparing a tiny studio with a cracked tile bathroom to a slightly bigger one with an ancient stove when I heard it. The unmistakable rumble of my grandfather's car. His old Dodge Charger sounded like it ran on thunder. Every time he started it, half the neighborhood turned their heads. I froze. Then I heard footsteps on the porch, the familiar firm knock. My heart jumped. I stepped into the hallway and looked down over the banister. My grandparents walked in like they owned the place. Grandpa in his faded denim jacket, jaw clenched, eyes already narrowed. Grandma clutching a Tupperware container I knew was something I liked, probably arroz con leche or those lemon cookies she made when I was a kid. I stayed on the stairs, half hidden, and listened. It didn't take long. What you did to that girl is disgusting, my grandfather's voice boomed from the living room. Using her, draining her, then calling her ungrateful? You should be ashamed. She's our daughter, my dad snapped back. This is our family. It's none of your business. When you turn your child into a bank, it becomes my business, Grandpa shot back. When you make her feel like she owes you for breathing, it becomes my business. My mom jumped in, voice sharp. She humiliated us, she said, pulling her name off that loan, making Marcus look like a fool. What kind of person does that to family? The kind that's finally waking up, my grandfather replied. I heard Marcus try to insert himself. She ruined my credit, he shouted. I needed that laptop, she promised. No, Grandpa said. She promised to help because you begged. You didn't keep your end of anything. You've been leeching off her like the rest of them. Silence. Then his voice, louder this time, slicing through the air. You've turned this house into a leech pit. That was when Grandma looked up and saw me on the stairs. Her expression softened. She gave me a small nod, like there you are. You ready? She asked. I swallowed and nodded back. I walked down the stairs, heart thudding, every step feeling like it might crack the floor open beneath me. Grandpa turned and looked at me. His face softened too. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He didn't explain, just pressed it into my hand. My dad's head snapped toward us. What's that? He demanded. None of your business, Grandpa said without looking at him. I opened it. $8,000 in cash, neatly stacked, wrapped in a rubber band. The room went dead silent. My dad stared like he'd just watched someone hand me a bomb. My mom took a step forward, eyes wide. Why are you giving that to her? She demanded. Grandpa didn't even spare her a glance. You use that to get out, he said to me. The sooner the better. Marcus's mouth dropped open. This is bullshit, he shouted. I asked you for money to fix my car and you said no. You said there wasn't any. Now you're just handing her $8,000? Because you'd waste it, Grandma said calmly, stepping between us. We're not funding your games and half-baked schemes. We're giving it to Helena because she needs it. And because, Grandpa added, turning to look at my parents, she's the only one worth a damn in this house. That was the match. My dad exploded. You have some nerve, he shouted, coming into my house, calling us leeches, playing favorites. You did that to yourselves, Grandpa cut in. You had decades to do right by her. All you did was take. My mom started bringing up every time they hadn't gotten help. The mortgage scare, the car repairs, the hospital bill from years ago. Old grievances dragged out and waved around like a shield. Grandma didn't raise her voice once. "We didn't give you money," she said, "because every dollar we gave you disappeared with nothing to show for it. We're giving this to Helena because she'll use it to build a life instead of dig a deeper hole." The room erupted into overlapping shouts. Finger pointing, accusations, curses, years of resentment, finally having their messy parade. I stood in the middle of it, envelope in my hands, and felt detached. Like I was watching someone else's family crack apart. I turned and walked back upstairs. Closed my door. Sat on my bed with $8,000 in my lap. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel fully. Not anger, not guilt. Possibility. I pulled my laptop toward me, clicked back to the apartment listings, and this time when I scrolled, it didn't feel like looking at a fantasy. It felt like making a plan. The next 2 days felt like stepping through the opening in a fence I didn't realize I'd been staring at my whole life. I wasn't free yet, but I could see the exit. I became obsessed with apartment hunting. It wasn't scrolling anymore. It was strategy. I had spreadsheets, notes, comparisons, rent, utilities, commute, neighborhood safety. It felt like studying for an exam no one else knew existed. By the second afternoon, I found it. A tiny one-bedroom 20 minutes away. Old brick building, slanted roof, crooked mailboxes, but the pictures showed sunlight pooling across a wood floor and a window big enough to see a sliver of sky. Rent, $1,200. With my savings, I could cover the deposit and scrape through the first few months. Tight, but real. I toured it alone the next morning, stepping into the empty space and exhaling without even meaning to. It smelled like paint and freedom. I signed the lease that afternoon. When I drove home, envelope still in my glove compartment, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something sharper. Momentum. I walked into the house carrying the lease packet. My dad was at the kitchen table, my mom chopping vegetables, Marcus lying on the couch scrolling through his phone. They all looked up when I entered. "I found an apartment," I said. My mom's knife froze mid-slice. "What?" she said flatly. "I'm moving out," I repeated, "this week." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the explosion hit. "You're being reckless," my dad snapped, standing so fast his chair scraped the floor. "You don't have the money for this." "You're abandoning your family," my mom said, voice brittle and sharp. "After everything we've done for you." "You won't last 2 months," Marcus added. "Guarantee it. You think the world cares about you? You think rent is fun?" I didn't back down. "I'm leaving," I said again. "I've already signed." My mom slammed the knife down. "Well," she said, "I hope you starve then." My dad shook his head at me with this dramatic disappointment, like I'd insulted the entire bloodline. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. I walked to my room, closed the door, and finally let myself smile. Packing wasn't emotionally difficult, it was physically difficult, because almost nothing that belonged to me was actually in my room. My life had been absorbed by the house. The mini fridge I bought for myself, sitting in the garage filled with my dad's beer, my desk chair, in Marcus's room. He'd taken it when his broke. Didn't ask. Never returned it. My phone charger, permanently plugged into the outlet behind the couch. My mom said it was everyone's now. My noise-canceling headphones, buried in my mom's laundry basket under a pile of unmatched socks. Every drawer I opened was missing something. Every corner of the house had a piece of me stuck in it. It wasn't shared space, it was claimed space. I spent the night pulling my belongings out like I was rescuing them from quicksand. The next morning, the retaliation began. The power in my room mysteriously went out. Just my room. I checked the fuse box. One flipped switch. The only switch in the whole panel. I flipped it back. Hum of electricity. Not a mistake. I didn't bother confronting anyone. It would have turned into another performance about how dramatic I was. An hour later, trash showed up outside my door. Empty soda cans, crumpled fast food bags, an old receipt stuck to a greasy napkin. I cleaned it up and kept packing. The following day, I tried doing laundry. My mom, accidentally, filled both machines and claimed she didn't know I needed them, then said she would get to it eventually. I ended up doing laundry at Logan's. He didn't ask questions at first. He just watched quietly as I loaded clothes into his machine, jaw tight. "You okay?" he asked eventually. "Just games," I said. "They're playing games." "Then don't play back," he said gently. "Just get out." He didn't offer for me to move in. I could see in his eyes he wanted to, but he knew me better than that. He knew I needed a place that didn't belong to anyone but me. That night, I came home and found Marcus blasting his speakers at full volume, music shaking the walls. When I walked past, he smirked at me with a look that said, "I own this hallway." I kept walking. He locked the bathroom door behind him when he saw me coming, took a 40-minute shower. I kept packing. Dinner became another battlefield. They talked around me, but never to me. My brother made jokes about people who can't handle adulting. My mom tossed around lines like, "Some people think they're too good for the family that raised them." My dad just gave me this slow head shake every time I looked up, as if I'd already failed before I even moved out. But still, I packed. Every night, another box labeled. Every night, another corner of freedom carved out. I found a cheap storage unit for things that wouldn't fit in my new place right away. I packed clothes in trash bags and taped fragile items in towels because bubble wrap suddenly felt like a luxury. I kept my suitcase under the bed, filled with the things I couldn't risk anyone touching. The day before the move, I sat at the kitchen table for a moment just to see what would happen. Nothing. My mom stood up and walked out of the room. My dad scrolled through his phone like I wasn't there. Marcus tossed an empty soda can toward the trash and didn't bother checking if it landed. It didn't. I stood, went upstairs, finished the last box, and laid on my bed staring at the ceiling. My grandfather called at 8. "We'll be there at 8 a.m. sharp," he said. "Bring coffee?" "Bagels too," Grandma yelled in the background. "And rope," Grandpa added. "We'll need rope." Then, after a pause, "You're doing the right thing, Helena. They'll be mad. Let them. You walk anyway." Another pause, softer this time. "I'm proud of you." I closed my eyes. No one in that house had ever said that to me. Not once. I slept maybe 3 hours. At 6:11 a.m., I was already up, dressed, and staring at the packed boxes stacked like stepping stones to the exit. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps, no doors slamming, no demands. I carried the first box downstairs, then the second, then the third. 3 trips before anyone woke up. 3 trips where it was just me and the echo of an empty hallway. At 8:03 a.m., I heard it. The deep growl of my grandfather's engine pulling up the driveway. My escape vehicle. I opened the door. Grandpa climbed out in his denim jacket, work gloves already on. Grandma held a box of gas station bagels and a cardboard tray with 3 coffees. She kissed my cheek softly when she reached me. "Let's get you out," she said. We started loading the truck. Grandpa had a system. Boxes first, heavier stuff in the back, everything tied with rope like he was preparing it for a storm. Grandma wiped each surface before loading it like she was setting up a home instead of leaving one. It felt like I had backup for the first time in my life. By 8:40 a.m., we were tying down the last load when I heard the familiar sound of my parents' car. They weren't supposed to be home until noon. I froze. Grandpa's hand paused on the rope. Grandma inhaled sharply. The car doors slammed. My dad walked towards us with his jaw set like he was marching into battle. My mom followed, glaring. Marcus stumbled out of the back seat shirtless, rubbing his eyes. No one said good morning. My dad stopped directly in front of the truck. "So this is what you're doing now," he said. He didn't look at me. I didn't look away. "Sure is," Grandma answered for me, walking up beside me. "She's doing what none of you ever had the guts to do." My mom let out a cold laugh. "Oh, so now she's some kind of hero?" Grandpa ignored her. We kept tying the last strap. Then Marcus circled around to the back of the truck, eyes scanning the boxes, and stopped. He reached in and pulled one halfway out. "This one's mine," he said. "You're not taking it." I recognized the box. Inside it was my Xbox. The one I paid for. The one he used every day. The one he told his friends was his. "That's mine," I said calmly. "I bought it. I have the receipt." "I don't care," he snapped. "You're not leaving with it." He stepped closer. The air tightened. For a moment, it felt like this was about to get physical. My mom started walking toward us, her eyes flashing with that familiar, "How dare you make things difficult" look. My dad crossed his arms, almost like he wanted to see what I'd do. Then Grandpa stepped forward. 1 step, slow, controlled. He stood beside me and said, in the calmest voice I'd ever heard from him, "Move." Marcus laughed. "No." Then Grandpa took another step, just one. But it was enough. The smirk disappeared from Marcus's face. He stepped back quickly. "Whatever, freak," he muttered, walking away. My mom shook her head. My dad said nothing. None of them apologized. None offered to help. They just hovered like spectators waiting for a show to continue. We finished loading everything. Grandpa checked the straps twice. Grandma tucked the extra rope into the side compartment. I did a last walkthrough of my room. Empty shelves, bare floor, window closed. I stood in the doorway one last time. 22 years in that room. But it never really felt like mine. I walked downstairs with my last bag. The front door was closed. No one came out. No goodbye. I got in my car, waited for Grandpa to pull onto the road, and followed them. Half a block away, my phone buzzed. A group text from my mom. Don't expect to come back here when this all falls apart. I muted the chat, looked up, and followed my grandparents' truck toward the freeway without looking back. By the time we reached my new apartment complex, the sun had risen enough to cast a thin gold light across the faded brick building. 2 floors, crooked shutters, mismatched mailboxes, the kind of place people describe as modest, unless you've lived in chaos your whole life. Then it's paradise. Grandpa parked with the deliberate precision of a man who had parallel parked tractors before cars even existed. I pulled up behind him, my hands still trembling from adrenaline or fear or something sharper. When I stepped out of the car, the air felt different, still, softer. No shouting from the neighbors, no thudding footsteps, no doors slamming like punctuation marks after accusations. Just quiet. My grandmother looked up at the building and smiled. "It's cute," she said. "You can make this yours." "Mine." The word hit somewhere deep. We hauled the boxes up the stairs. Grandpa moved like he'd done this 100 times, because he had. Grandma wiped down counters and checked the fridge like a mom inspecting a dorm room on move-in day. For every box I carried in, 10 pounds of something heavy slid off my chest. No guilt, no eyes watching, no silent commentary radiating from the kitchen. Around noon, we were halfway done. Grandma handed me a lukewarm bagel, and I ate it, standing in my own kitchen. A kitchen that had never heard my mother sigh, or my father criticize, or Marcus rummage through my things without asking. That alone felt worth half my savings. But before we could finish unloading, my phone buzzed. "Logan, did you make it okay? Want help unpacking later?" A tiny smile crept up. Before I could answer, Grandpa called from the doorway. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "Let's get the last load." I shoved my phone back in my pocket. When we got back to the truck for the final trip, something felt wrong. Grandpa paused mid-step. Then I heard it. That sound, the sound I'd grown up with. The engine of my parents' car. "No, not here." My chest seized. The car pulled in fast, tires crunching aggressively, like my dad was trying to take ownership of the parking lot. They weren't supposed to know where I lived. I hadn't told them. But I knew exactly how they found out. Marcus. He'd always tracked locations on shared apps without asking. I forced myself to stand straight as Mom's door flew open. She stepped out with that tight, bitter smile, the one she wore right before she said something unforgivable. "Well," she said loudly, "here she is." I didn't answer. My dad slammed his door like it owed him money and strode toward the truck. Grandpa stiffened. Grandma stepped just slightly in front of me. Dad stopped in front of the truck bed. "So this is your big plan?" he said, voice dripping contempt. "Run away? Letting them steal you from your family?" Grandpa didn't move. "No one stole her," he said. "She left." Marcus stumbled out of the back seat, shirt half on, eyes bloodshot. "God, this place is a dump," he muttered, looking around. "You really think you're going to survive here, without us?" My jaw clenched. "I already did survive," I said, "with you." Mom rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, listen to her, acting like she had it so hard. We fed you, we clothed you, we gave you a home." I stepped forward before I could stop myself. "And I paid for most of it," I said. "The bills, the groceries, the internet, the graduation party. I covered more than you ever admitted." Silence, flickering, but only for a second. Then my dad scoffed, waving his hand like I'd said something childish. "You think paying a few bills makes you grown? You think you're going to handle rent, utilities, life without us?" "I've been handling everything," I said, calmer than I felt. "The difference is, now I'm doing it without being insulted for it." Marcus snorted. "You're dramatic. You always have been. That's why no one takes you seriously." I didn't react, which only made him push harder. "Grandpa's spoiling you," he added. "They picked their favorite and left the rest of us to rot." Grandma stepped forward at that. "We didn't give you money," she said, voice deceptively soft, "because you waste everything you touch." Marcus's jaw dropped. "And we gave it to Helena because she needed it," she continued, "and because she's the only one worth a damn in this family." Mom whipped around. "How dare you?" "How dare you?" Grandma snapped back, the softness vanishing. "How dare you treat her like a servant, like a source of income? You didn't raise her. She raised all of you." The parking lot went quiet. A bird chirped somewhere. Cars passed on the distant road. The world kept moving while my family stood frozen in their own anger. Dad took one hard step forward. "You're abandoning us," he said, "and don't come crawling back when it all falls apart." "I won't," I said. His face hardened. "Ungrateful," he said. That's all you are. Something inside me finally snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. I'm not ungrateful, I said. I'm done being used. Marcus scoffed again, walking around to the back of the truck. And then he did it again. He grabbed a box. Not just any box, one of my boxes. This one's mine, he said. You're not taking it. I recognized the handwriting on the label. My handwriting. Desk stuff. Inside, my headset, notebooks, laptop stand, things I bought. Things he'd borrowed without asking. Things he thought he was entitled to because everything in that house became shared. No, I said, put it back. Marcus held the box tighter. What are you going to do? He taunted. Hit me? Like that old man over there? Before I could speak, Grandpa stepped forward again. Slow, measured, steel in the shape of a man. Put the box back, he said. Marcus smirked. No, another step, just one. But Marcus felt it. He backed up so fast he almost tripped. Whatever, he muttered, dropping the box back into the truck bed. Take your stupid stuff. See if I care. Grandpa didn't look away until Marcus retreated fully. Mom grabbed Marcus's arm. Dad barked something under his breath. None of them helped. None apologized. None acknowledged that they were standing in the parking lot of my new life, trying to claw their way inside. I looked at them, really looked. My dad's anger masquerading as authority, my mom's bitterness dressed as concern, Marcus's entitlement masquerading as injury. And for the first time, I felt nothing tying me to them. Not fear, not guilt, not hope. Just distance. Grandpa turned to me. You ready? He asked. I nodded. We unloaded the last boxes in silence. My parents didn't offer to help, didn't attempt a goodbye, didn't even pretend. When they finally got back into their car, Dad called out the window. You'll come running back, just wait. I didn't answer. Their car pulled out of the lot. Tires squealed like they were trying to leave marks on the ground, like claiming territory. They disappeared around the corner. The air felt cleaner after they left. Lighter. Grandma squeezed my arm. They'll get over it, she said. I won't, I replied, and I meant it. After they left, everything moved faster. Boxes in the kitchen, clothes in the closet, bed frames set up, Grandpa hammering nails like each one was pinning my new life in place. Grandma rearranging pantry items as if she'd known this kitchen forever. Logan showed up half an hour later, slightly out of breath. Hey, he said, stepping through the doorway. Just wanted to... He stopped, looked around at the boxes, the open windows, the sunlight, me. A slow smile spread across his face. You did it, he said. His voice cracked just slightly, not with sadness, but with relief. I did, I said. We finished unpacking while Grandpa lectured Logan about proper shelving anchors, and Grandma made everyone chamomile tea and mugs she found in one of my kitchen boxes. When evening came, my grandparents hugged me tight. We'll come by next weekend, Grandma said, patting my cheek. Bring you a real table. And a microwave, Grandpa added. I laughed. I don't need a microwave. You need a microwave, they said in unison. They left. Logan stayed. He didn't ask if I wanted him to. He didn't assume. He just lingered in the doorway, hands in pockets. I'm proud of you, he said softly. My throat tightened. He didn't reach for me, didn't try to play savior, didn't fill the silence with promises. He just let the moment sit. And for the first night in my entire life, I slept without tension coiled inside me. No slamming doors, no yelling, no footsteps, no guilt. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels earned. After my grandparents left, and Logan finally went home for the night, I stood in the center of my new living room, though living room was generous. It was one open space with a window and a heater that made faint clicking noises. My mattress lay rolled up by the wall, and a cardboard box was doing its best impression of a coffee table. But God, it was mine. I'd never had silence that felt like a blessing. At my old house, silence meant a storm was building behind a door or down a hallway. Someone was angry. Someone was waiting to pounce. Someone was preparing an accusation disguised as conversation. Here, silence meant peace. I spread out my blankets, climbed onto the floor mattress, and stared at the ceiling. Not because I was anxious, but because I could, because nothing else demanded my attention. I didn't dream about escaping, I dreamed about what's next. The next morning, sunlight crept across my new floor like it was testing the place out, curious. I made coffee in a cheap $15 machine, burned the first batch, then made a better one. I sat cross-legged on the kitchen floor with my chipped mug and took in the room. It wasn't the prettiest place, not the biggest, not the cleanest. But it held no expectations, no demands, no obligations tied to guilt. Around noon, I drove back to my old house with Grandpa to pick up a few tools and a storage box I'd forgotten in the garage. I didn't want to go inside, so I texted Marcus and told him to leave my things by the side door. When we arrived, the bag was waiting, shoved inside a turned black trash bag, duct taped shut like someone packed it angrily or carelessly. I didn't look at the house. I didn't knock. No one came out anyway. My mom's car was in the driveway. My dad's too. My brother's bike leaned against the porch railing. But the curtains never moved. Grandpa loaded the trash bag into the bed of his truck. As he tied it down, he muttered, "Figures." I said nothing. On the drive back, he said, "I bet they told themselves you'll be back in a month." I stared out the window and said, "Let them wait." Unpacking felt different this time. Not rushed, not frantic, not supervised. Just mine. I put a few things on the shelves, hung one picture, stood back and realized how small the space was and how huge it felt. That night, I took the longest shower of my life. No one banged on the door. No one complained about the water bill. No one yelled that someone else needed to get in. I wrapped myself in a towel and smelled my shampoo, uninterrupted. Afterward, I ordered pizza, set my laptop on a box, and ate straight from the carton with my hands. It was the best meal I'd had in years. Not because of the food, because of the silence around it. The weekend came. Still no calls from my parents, not even a text. It didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Maybe because deep down I'd always known it wasn't my absence that bothered them. It was losing access. On Monday night, Grandpa came over to help mount a couple of shelves and fix a loose outlet cover. We didn't talk about my family. We didn't need to. He worked quietly while I held the flashlight. When we were done, he said, "This place suits you." And I realized it did. 2 weeks after I settled in, I hosted a small housewarming. Nothing fancy. Some coworkers from the bookstore, a coding boot camp friend, Logan, and of course my grandparents. Grandma arrived first carrying way too much food. Lemon bars, empanadas, and 2 plastic containers of arroz con leche. "Just in case your friends are hungry," she said. Grandpa brought folding chairs and a toolbox. Just in case something breaks. He set them down like they were gifts. My friends showed up next. They drank cheap wine and complimented the streaks of light on my wall. They took pictures of my tiny kitchen like it was a quirky aesthetic instead of the only option I could afford. Logan pulled me aside at one point, nodding toward my grandparents who were showing my coworker how to fold a napkin the proper way. "You okay?" he asked softly. I looked around my apartment. The mismatched cups, the thrifted lamp, the hand-me-down microwave Grandma insisted on bringing. My mattress still on the floor, the soft, unfamiliar feeling of being surrounded by people who weren't waiting to take something from me. "I'm good," I said simply. Then, after a moment, "I don't think I've ever meant that before." He smiled, hesitated, then gently touched my hand. "Take your time," he said. "Don't rush anything. I'm not going anywhere." Something warm pressed into my ribs. For the first time, I believed someone meant it. After everyone left, I cleaned the kitchen in silence, wiping down the counter like it was sacred ground. I stood in the dim glow of my thrift store lamp with a slice of leftover cake in my hand and thought, "This is what home feels like. Not what I lived in before, not what they demanded I be grateful for. This." My parents still hadn't reached out. Not during the move, not after the party, not even now. Marcus sent one text. "Cool." No context, no apology, no follow-up. I didn't reply. They weren't blocked. I didn't feel the need. They could call, they could text, they could show up. But they would never get inside this place. Not emotionally, not physically. That door was closed. And I wasn't the one who closed it. They slammed it shut long before I walked out. I just finally stopped knocking. Some mornings, I walked to the coffee shop down the block and watched families talking and laughing. The kind of family I never had. The kind I used to ache for. Sometimes the ache still flickers. You don't just lose the want. You lose the belief that the want will ever be met. But then I remember, I do have family. 2 people who stood on my parents' porch and told the truth. 2 people who showed up with money and ropes and bagels and full hearts. 2 people who saw me. Not for what I could give, but for who I was trying to become. My grandparents were enough, more than enough. Every month when I pay rent, I smile. Sometimes my bank account scares me. Sometimes I'm broke. Sometimes I eat ramen for 3 straight days. But no one yells at me while I cook. No one flips the breaker. No one steals my headphones. No one demands my paycheck. No one mocks me in front of guests. No one tells me I owe them for surviving. I eat dinner alone in silence, and I sleep through the night. And that quiet, that peace, is worth every dollar I'll ever earn. For the first time in my life, I feel free.